In 1995, in Bydom, Poland, a boxer named Jedrzej returns to his old boxing gym after a long time and begins narrating his story. In 1971, a young Jedrzej watches his father, Edwin, knock out his opponent in the second round and win the fight. Sometime later, while they're having fun at their gym, Konstanty, the manager of Edwin's Russian opponent, enters.
Mistrzem Polski, tak jak twój tata?
Będę mistrzem świata.
Miły?
Tak,
Twoje.
dziękuję.
They then continue their conversation in private. Konstanty threatens Edwin, saying they'll hurt his son if he doesn't give up on winning the Olympics. After they leave, Edwin's brother-in-law advises him not to give up after working so hard. Eventually, Edwin fights the Russians at the Olympics and intentionally loses, ending his career. Years later, Jedrzej is now a teenager. Edwin comes in and finds him doing some play boxing. Angry, he forces Jedrzej to quit that nonsense and focus on his studies. Edwin has taken a job as a miner and continually buries Jedrzej under a mountain of books, though Jedrzej mainly cares about boxing. At school, the teacher asks Jedrzej a question after noticing him scribbling. Jedrzej answers the question with more detail than necessary, and the teacher forces him to sit down. After school, his uncle Czesiek picks him up. Czesiek's girlfriend bandages Jedrzej's hands,
Masz już dziewczynę?
and Czesiek gives him a rare boxing magazine as a birthday present, reminding him not to let his dad see it. That evening, Edwin finds the magazine and slaps Jedrzej. Jedrzej's mother intervenes, and Edwin storms out to talk with Czesiek. As he rushes outside, Edwin becomes tense and starts coughing up blood. His lungs have turned black from working in the mines. Jedrzej obeys his father to avoid causing more trouble at home. On the day he is recognized as the student with the highest GPA, he rushes home to share the news with his father, only to find him dead. After Edwin's death, Jedrzej loses interest in studying and is unable to attend the funeral. A friend tries to comfort him, saying he heard his dad was a good man, but Jedrzej roughs him up and insists he wasn't. Czesiek soon arrives and stops Jedrzej.
To bij! Tylko tyle cię stać?
Days later, Czesiek begins training Jedrzej, showing him how to punch a bag. This continues for years until one day,
Jesteś gotów.
he got knocked out on the day of his first fight in the 1985 Polish Championship. Before the countdown ends, Jedrzej gets back up, and the fighter continues to pummel him. During the rest, Czesiek slaps Jedrzej around and riles him up for getting himself beat up like a princess.
A widziałeś cycki tej kobiety w pierwszym rzędzie? Na dół się gapisz, a twój przeciwnik stoi. Popłaczesz się? Królewno?
Jedrzej gets back in the ring, and he obliterates his opponent. That evening, Czesiek takes Jedrzej out to eat, and he notices a girl named Kasia in the bar. Jedrzej walks up to her, but she tells him he's disturbing her chemistry study. When she gets up to leave, he stops her and tells her he'll leave her alone if he can't answer any questions she has from the book. She asks him a question, which he pretends not to know, and then he answers. Eventually, she gives him a chance, and they discuss his boxing career. They both promise each other that they'll take it slow, but they get married 3 weeks later. One night, the couple goes out to steal some bricks to build a brick bathtub because the bricks aren't available in Poland's poor market, and they suddenly start to make love. They make some noise, and the guards chase them around. When they get back home, Kasia notices Jedrzej's not happy. When she asks, he complains that he's the Polish champion, but he's been reduced to stealing bricks for a bathtub. Eventually, he says that they have to leave Poland to go to England because he can go to the European Championship, and she can go to the University of London. Sometime later, Jedrzej tells his uncle that he plans to go to London with Kasia because he won't end up like his father. Czesiek tries to explain to him that his father didn't lose the Olympics, but Jedrzej doesn't listen and tells him he'll go to London without him. Days later, Czesiek comes to see the couple to ask them about their plan. He tells them they might get killed in Europe due to the insecurity. Eventually, he tells them he has an idea to help them. He gets Kasia fake passports to work as a nurse on their bus, taking the Polish team to London for the championship. When Kasia starts to panic and says she doesn't know anything about medicine, Czesiek tells them to make a decision. When they decide, Czesiek and Jedrzej head to the bus. He tells him nobody should know he and Kasia know one another. Kazia tries to get into the bus as the substitute nurse, and one other player talks about how he plans to sleep with her. Jedrzej protests, but because he can't say she's his wife,
zaraz po mnie, nie?
the policeman at the bus entrance, Vladek, stops Kazia and even notices she's been drinking to build courage. He tells her to be honest with him, so Kazia turns the conversation around and says the dark circles under his eyes signify a liver problem, so he lets her in. The next morning, they reach London. The doctor sitting next to Kasia notices she's peeing a lot. He asks her how far along she is, and she says she's not sure. That night, Jedrzej jumps out of the window and sneaks into Kasia's room. He tries to convince her to climb on his back so they can climb out the window, but Kasia protests that she can't do this anymore because she's pregnant. She protests that they could get arrested and never get to raise their child. But Jedrzej tells her that he wants their son to grow up in London, so he doesn't go through what he had to. Because Kasia can't climb down the window, Jedrzej devises a plan for them to get out the next day. The next day, Vladek is stationed in the medical ward, which makes it harder for Kasia to escape. Meanwhile, Jedrzej escapes through the window. When the policeman loses patience, he breaks the door and finds out he escaped. Kasia also managed to evade the policeman, but she gets stopped by one of the fighters, who tries to woo her. When they start to chase her, she manages to run out and find Jedrzej. Eventually, the couple find the house of one of Czesiek's friends, Charles, who gladly lets them in. Days later, Charles drops the couple off at Neil McAvannagh's gym. When they explain to the trainer, he tells them to get lost because they'd need a private session to see Neil. When Jedrzej spots Neil, he approaches him and explains that he saw his face on a paper. The couple tells Neil that Jedrzej is the Polish champion and they'd like him to represent him. Neil explains that he has all the fighters he needs, but Jedrzej insists that he can be his best fighter.
But at the moment, as you can see, I'm very busy. So, there's the door.
Destroy!
Destroy any of your fighters.
Tak, kill! I can kill!
Jedrzej tells him that he can beat up any of his champions.
Oj.
One of the fighters, Roy, asks Jedrzej if he thinks he can take him and insults him. Angry, Jedrzej gets into the ring with Roy, and the trainer tells him he's in deep trouble. In the first round, Roy plays around with Jedrzej. Eventually, Roy gets angry and knocks him down. When Jedrzej learns that Roy is the world middleweight champion, he puts more effort into it, but he breaks his arm while fighting. Kasia comes to take Jedrzej out, and he chastises her for butting in when he asked her not to. While they're arguing, a guy named Jackie Boss approaches and tells them he's looking for a boxer who he can pay to fight great champions, but intentionally loses at the end of the 12th round. Jedrzej tells him to piss off, but Jackie secretly hands Kasia his card in case her husband changes his mind. When they get home, they find out that someone has looted their room. Jedrzej angrily roughs up Charles, claiming he stole their money. Kasia tries to stop him since they don't have passports, but Jedrzej continues, and they're arrested. Luckily, the police don't deport them but take them to an immigration center. Another Chinese couple introduces themselves, saying they've been there for 8 months.
Cyganie.
Świętro, uspokój się, chcą się przebić. From Russia?
Polska, kurwa. Sayonara.
And we go...
Later, Kasia panics and says they can't raise their child there, but Jedrzej insists he's going to find another boxing gym and make Neil regret not signing him. 8 months later,
Kurwa! You punch like a vagina.
at the local gym, the owner comes to tell Jedrzej he's 3 months behind on his gym fees. Jedrzej asks for one more day, and the trainer agrees. Eventually, as Jedrzej gets better, Czesiek is sent back to Poland for treason. Jedrzej receives some packages from his mom and finds out through the Polish papers she sent that he's on the news as a criminal. That evening, Kasia returns from her job, and Jedrzej gives her a leg rub. She asks him about his job, and he says he's been training, but he needs to pay the gym fees to get a fight booked. Kasia tells him they have no money, but Jedrzej reminds her that they have the money from her jobs. They soon get into an argument because Kasia wants to rent a flat for the baby, but Jedrzej promises that he can win a fight. He claims that he couldn't train with his broken hand, but Kasia tells him she's sick and tired of hearing his excuses because no one here wants to set up a fight for him, and they should go back home. During the argument, Kasia goes into labor, and they rush to the hospital to give birth. After the baby is born, Jedrzej tells Kasia he's sorry. She tells him she knows he sacrificed much to be there, but they need to go back home for their baby. That night, Jedrzej remembers Jackie's offer and accepts the job. On his first day, Kasia gives him a boxing gown she made for him. She tells him that she knows what kind of fight it is, but reminds him that he'll always be their champion. Before he goes out to fight, Czesiek, who had recently left prison, comes to look for Jedrzej. Apparently Czesiek found a way to come there to witness his nephew's professional boxing debut, and he says he'd like to be his trainer. Czesiek tries to motivate Jedrzej to win, but Jedrzej tries to explain the situation to him. Czesiek doesn't listen and slaps him around to motivate him to win as usual.
Koniec pierdolenia. Walcz.
Soon after, they're in the ring, and Jedrzej's opponent, Rascal, is called in. When the fight begins, Jedrzej keeps taking hits, and Czesiek wonders what he's doing. He keeps trying to rile up the opponent, and he lands just one punch.
Come on!
During the rest, Czesiek tells him to stop clowning around. In the next round, Jedrzej still keeps taking hits, gets punched in the face, and is knocked out. As the referee counts, his uncle yells at him to get up, but he just lies there. His entire life flashes across his mind, and he gets up. In the next round, he pummels the opponent and whoops his behind. During the rest, Jackie comes to ask Jedrzej what on earth he's doing, but Jedrzej winks at him. In the next round, Jedrzej knocks out his opponent, much to Jackie's dismay. After the fight, Jedrzej and Czesiek rejoice, but Jackie ambushes them to ask what on earth he did. Suddenly, Rascal's manager, Nikki, soon steps in and says that Jackie promised him that he'd go down in the second round. Nikki tells them that he built a strong career for 5 years for Rascal, and Jedrzej messed it up in one day. Jedrzej tells him he should have directed his attention elsewhere because he came to be the world champion and doesn't plan to lose.
Kurwa, ma jaja. Serio, masz kurwa jaja.
Shortly after, Nikki signs a contract with Jedrzej to be his next fighter. The next morning, they head to Nikki's gym to train. In private, Nikki asks Jedrzej what Czesiek is doing there since Czesiek wasn't part of the deal. Jedrzej tells him that Czesiek helped him get there, but Nikki says that he decides who will be in his corner. Eventually, Nikki publicly introduces Jedrzej to his new coach, Pierre. Jedrzej explains the situation to Czesiek and says he can still help out, but Pierre has to be his official coach, and Czesiek eventually concedes. During training, Pierre and Czesiek butt heads over what Jedrzej does in the training ring, while Jackie looks for the right competitors for Jedrzej. In Jedrzej's first official fight, he knocks out his opponent in the first round. In one match, Jedrzej messes up a guy so much that the opponent's mother comes to the ring to stop him. Nikki moves Jedrzej and Kazia into an apartment. When they leave, Jedrzej promises Czesiek that he'll get him out of the immigration center soon. In one of his matches, Jedrzej knocks his opponent out of the ring and impresses a beautiful woman named Eva. Jedrzej winks at her and Kazia notices. Eventually, Jedrzej appears in the papers and even gets the big mansion he promised Kazia he'd get for the family. When they move in, Kazia asks Jedrzej if it isn't weird that Nikki would give him a mansion, but Jedrzej insists that Nikki is like family. 3 years later, Kazia and Tadeusz go to one of Jedrzej's matches. After Jedrzej knocks out the opponent, he tells Nikki that he would like to fight a strong opponent like Roy and not lame opponents. After his fight, Jedrzej leaves the center and the crowd goes wild when Roy comes in for his own world championship fight. At a press conference, the beautiful news reporter, Eva, from years ago, asks Jedrzej why he thinks he's any good when he's always taking fights arranged by Jackie. When Roy shows up after winning the world championship for the 3rd time, all the reporters focus on him. Czesiek, who's drunk, approaches Jedrzej and tells him that Roy's European boxing is a circus and Edwin could destroy them with one look. Jedrzej becomes angry at Czesiek and tells him to stop going around drinking and messing around. Kazia comes to meet him, but he unknowingly hits her while he's shouting. He tells Czesiek that all he does is drink and tells him to never come back because he never needed him, even though Kazia tries to stop him. Roy tells they're watching his family starve. When Jedrzej chases him out, Rascal informs him that Nikki is a snake, but Jedrzej doesn't listen. Shortly after, Kazia publicly discloses that she believes Nikki is not being sincere, and Jedrzej tells her it's time to go home. When they step out, she tells Jedrzej that she doesn't trust him. Jedrzej tells her that Nikki provided all they have, but she reminds him that he did the same for Rascal. When she reminds him about Czesiek, Jedrzej reminds her that she humiliated him at Neil's gym and tried to manipulate him to go back to Poland because she doesn't believe in him. Enraged, Kazia reminds him that she worked 2 jobs while in the immigration center, left her family, and abandoned her dream of university because it's always about him. Jedrzej gets angry that she's insinuating he's not doing this for their family and walks away. He goes to Ava's room, and they make love. The next morning, he wakes up in Ava's house and feels disgusted by himself. At the gym, Kasia comes to ask him where he went last night, and he tells her he went to see Czesiek. The only issue is that she went to check on Czesiek last night. She doesn't tell him, but she apologizes for the night before and reminds him that their anniversary and Tadeus's birthday are on Thursday. Later, Nikki tells Jedrzej that he set up Eva to do a live interview with him on Thursday to build publicity for his next fight. On Thursday, everyone gathers to watch the interview, and Kasia notices how intimate Jedrzej and Eva seem. After the interview, Eva tells Jedrzej to follow her to the party of the year. He protests that he has to be at his son's birthday party, but she explains that all the top people who can help him to the top are at the party. Meanwhile, at Tadeus's birthday party, Tadeus becomes worried when his dad doesn't arrive. At Eva's party, Eva takes Jedrzej to a secret room to have a three-way, but Kasia calls. When he eventually picks up the call, he explains that the producers of the show called him for a drink. Kasia tells him that Tadeusz says he has to be the one to set off the fireworks. But Jedrzej keeps getting distracted by the women who are making out on the bed, so he joins them. After he ends the call, Czesiek tells Kasia she's a beautiful lady and one of the smartest people they all had the chance to meet. He apologizes that it all went sideways and tells her he loves them all. When Tadeusz comes to call Czesiek, he tells Kasia to fight for what is hers and not to give up. That night, Kasia weeps as she cleans up the house. The next morning, Jedrzej sneaks into the house and finds out that Kasia has left with Tadeusz. In response, Jedrzej brings Eva into the house. Not long after, he begins to take cocaine, attend more interviews, and have three-ways with Eva. The only thing he forgot was that in order to win the championship, he needed to train. 6 months after Kasia left, Pierre notices that Jedrzej is slacking and asks him why he's not been showing up for training. Later, Nikki calls him in and asks him the same thing. Jedrzej explains that Kasia left with their son, but Nikki tells him he doesn't give a crap about any of that and reminds him that there will be consequences if he doesn't deliver. When Jedrzej feels threatened, he tells Nikki that he's going to take his money. Eventually, after Nikki deducts the money Jedrzej cost him in Rascal's fights, the rent he's paying for the house, the cost of his car, the gym payments, Pierre's payments, and several other things, he tells him that he still owes him £420,000 with interest. Jedrzej says that he's not fighting if that's the case, but Nikki tells him that he has to submit everything he gave him and pay back his money or win the championship. It's now clear to Jedrzej all of Nikki's talk about being family was a scam. That night, Jedrzej goes to the immigration center to apologize to Czesiek, only to find out that he had hanged himself in the bathroom. At Czesiek's funeral, Kasia shows up. She asks Jedrzej if he could find some time for them to talk, but Eva comes to invade their conversation. Eventually, Kasia leaves, and Eva starts to complain that it's cold outside. Jedrzej walks out on her and tells her to stay away from him. That night, Jedrzej invites Kasia to his house, and he prepares dinner. He tells her that he got front-row tickets to his fight for her and Tadeusz, but she informs him that she only came to hand over the divorce papers. Jedrzej gets angry that he was preparing all along just for her to come and serve him divorce papers. When he asks her who she's sleeping with, she angrily leaves, and he stops her. He apologizes, saying he's just angry and sad. He reminds her about the time they were so much in love in Poland and how they came to England to achieve their dreams. Kasia tells him that those were never her dreams, but she only came to England because she loved him. As she angrily drives away in a cab, Jedrzej threatens to take Tadeusz away from her. On the day of the big fight, Jedrzej gets his behind whooped by Roy at first. Soon, Roy realizes that Jedrzej is enjoying being punched, and he becomes scared. The tables soon turn, and Jedrzej pummels Roy to the ground until people have to drag him away. After he gets the world title, Jedrzej returns to Poland and places the belt over his father's grave and weeps like a baby. He returns to his father's old gym, and Wladek approaches him. Oddly, Wladek comes to thank him and his wife for saving his life by spotting his dark circles and helping him get diagnosed with cancer early. He hands Jedrzej his passports and a recording Czesiek made about how Konstanty threatened Edwin. Sometime later, Jedrzej goes to Konstanty and asks for Czesiek's gym back. A policeman protests, but Jedrzej knocks him out, which impresses Konstanty, and he signs the ownership transfer. Jedrzej restores the gym, and Kasia returns with Tadeusz. At his gym, Jedrzej trains Tadeusz to do some boxing. He realizes Tadeusz is a little uninterested, so he takes him out to do what he wants. In the 1980s, over 1 million people left Poland because of poverty, persecution, or chasing a better life for their kids.
If you want more movie explainers like this, comment the next movie name. and subscribe to K.Movie Explain at K.Movie.E for more. Please visit to our Instagram and Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching till the end.